Welcome to session 3 of the Podcast Guesting Masterclass. I am your host, Jessica Rhodes. I'm the founder and co-owner of Interview Connections. We are the world's first ever and leading done-for-you podcast booking agency. And since 2013, we have booked more than 50,000 interviews on podcasts for more than 1,000 clients. And so far this week in this masterclass, we have shared with you the secret to getting clients from podcast guesting, which was the focus of session 1. Remember, there are 3 main ways that you can get clients from podcast guesting. Who remembers what those 3 ways are? I want you to put it in the chat. What were the 3 ways that you can get clients from podcast guesting? It's not just from the people who hear you on the show, but I want you to put it in the chat. Remind everyone, yes, from your own list. What's from the host? And then the third way, from your own audience, from the host, and from their audience. Yes. So session 1 has a bunch of different tips on how you can get clients in those 3 different ways. And then session 2 yesterday was all about the art of being an unforgettable podcast guest, showing up confidently, sharing stories, really connecting with the host and their audience. So make sure you check out session 2 as well. Now, you are going to have access to the replays all of this week and all of next week. So Friday, December 19th is the last day of the masterclass. That is the last day you can access the recordings, which are all on the replay page, interviewconnections.com/replays. We have had some questions already this week on how to repurpose podcast interviews, and that is what today's session is all about. It's about how to amplify your authority online as a podcast guest by repurposing your content as a guest. And when you implement what I'm going to share with you in today's session, you will create exponentially more exposure from your interviews and add years of life to your podcast appearances. But to implement what I'm going to tell you about today, you need to be getting interviewed on podcasts consistently. If you're not getting interviewed, there's nothing to repurpose. And the easiest way to make sure that you're actually getting booked is to find the who, not the how. Who here is familiar with the book by Dan Sullivan, Who Not How? It's a very powerful concept. Rather than trying to figure out how to get yourself booked on podcasts, find the who, find the person that can actually get you booked. And that is Interview Connections. My company, Interview Connections, we have the team, we have the connections. We are your who for getting interviewed on podcasts. You've heard me mention probably throughout the masterclass, clients of ours and what we do with our clients. So I'm going to just share with you in full what is included when you work with Interview Connections and how to get started. So when you join our membership and become a member of Interview Connections, you're going to get guaranteed bookings on podcasts every single month. We have 3 different membership levels: silver, gold, and platinum. So you could do silver, which is 1 booking a month, gold, which is our most popular, that's 3 bookings a month, and then platinum, which is 5 bookings a month. We are also going to repurpose everything else now is included in every single membership level, a professionally designed podcast guest one sheet and a media kit. And we'll repurpose all of the interviews that get published while you're an active member of Interview Connection. So a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about today, we're going to do for you. We're going to take the recordings that go live when you're a member, and we're going to turn them into video clips for you. You also will get monthly calls with a dedicated booking agent. So our team, full-time, local employees, there's lots of other booking agencies out there, but when you get into it, you realize they're just connecting you with another agency to outsource and white label. We don't do that. We have our own staff who have connections and relationships with podcast hosts. So you'll have your own dedicated booking agent who will have monthly calls with you for coaching, strategy, and feedback. We also have a school community. So the teaching doesn't just stop at this masterclass. We have trainings and resources inside our school community that you got access to as a member. And then every single month, I host a business mastermind call. So clients can come together, share best practices and resources with each other. And then once per quarter, we have all members come together for a networking call. So again, there's 3 different levels of membership depending on how fast you want to go, what your budget is. It starts at just $1,000 a month with our silver membership and then goes up to about $3,250 a month for the platinum. So to apply to work with us, because it's not for everyone, go to interviewconnections.com/call to apply, and we'll have a call with you. We'll review your information. And if it looks like we can help you, we'll hop on a conversation on Zoom and help get you signed up. All right, so now I want you to give me a yes in the chat if you are ready to amplify your authority online by learning how to repurpose your podcast interviews. Give me a yes in the chat and we're going to dive right in. Oh, Kathy asked what the cost of gold is. The cost of the investment for gold is $18.75 a month. $18.75 a month. And again, as a membership, there's no long-term contracts. You can cancel anytime with 30 days notice. Although I highly recommend this becomes a long-term investment for you where you build it into your marketing budget every single month, every single year. But as a member, you can sign up and cancel anytime with 30 days notice. So silver is $1,000 a month. Gold is $18.75 a month. And platinum is $32.50 a month. If you pay annually, you get a month free. So go to interviewconnections.com/call to apply and hop on a conversation. All right. So when you're a guest on podcasts, a lot of people that are drawn to this strategy are those who feel like their best content flows when they are responding to questions. Who here feels like that? You can just say me in the chat if you know that your best content flows when you're responding to questions. This is especially true for coaches. Who here is just put coach in the chat if you're a coach, maybe you're a life coach, business coach, relationship coach. Your brilliance as a coach is responding to questions. You get on a call with your client and you may have no idea what they want to talk about that day, but every single time they get off a call with you, they're like, that was amazing because you responded to their questions and your brilliance flowed by responding to their questions. So if you're a coach and you know that when your best content flows by responding, you should have a marketing content creation strategy that puts you in responding energy. And that is being a podcast guest. When you're a podcast guest, you're responding to questions, and that's where your best content flows. So if your best content is flowing when you're responding to questions, don't just let the questions and that content stay on the podcast. You want to take that content and repurpose it into a lot of different other forms of content to get more mileage out of it. So I'm going to go through a whole bunch of actionable ways that you can do just that. So number one, before your podcast interview is recorded, you're going to go ahead and post on social media that you've booked yourself on a podcast, that you've gotten booked on a podcast. This is really a lot of this is going to be simple. So, but all put together, it's a really genius strategy and approach. So our client, Christina Woods, who is going to be at session 4 tomorrow, you will not want to miss her story. It's absolutely incredible what she's created from podcast guesting. When we booked her on her first podcast interview, when she first signed up with us 3 years ago, she went onto social media. She posted that she was booked for a podcast, and somebody saw that post and reached out to her and said, hey, I saw that you're booked on a podcast. Do you also speak at retreats? And so that person hired Christina as a speaker at their retreat. And when Christina went to that retreat and spoke, she ended up getting a lot of clients from the retreat. So by you posting and talking and responding to this booking and sharing about that with your audience, remember your list from session 1, that is a way that you can get more opportunities, more speaking opportunities, and more clients. So whenever you're booked on a podcast, go tell your audience about it. On the day of your recording, so you have an interview on your calendar, let's say it's an hour from now or it's coming up, you're getting all ready, you've got your microphone, you've got your headphones, you've got your light on, you look great, you got a good background. Take a selfie or do a little story on your Instagram or a little video you can post on LinkedIn and talk about the fact that you're about to be on a podcast behind the scenes. This is what's going on with my day. I've got an interview today. I've got some client calls. Tell your audience what you're doing because again, when you talk about being booked, when you talk about what's coming up on your calendar, you are sending a message to your audience that you are booked, you are busy, and they should pay attention to you. So talk about your interviews on the day of your recording and immediately after the recording. So this is just 3 different things you can post about online right after you get booked, the day of your recording, and then right after the recording. This is when responder energy really comes into practice. You can respond right after the interview. So you just got off the podcast. Let's say it was a 45-minute conversation. The host asked you a lot of different questions. Maybe you shared stories that you haven't thought about in a while because the questions they asked sparked some new ideas and new stories that you hadn't thought about. you can go live on Instagram or Facebook or whatever and just say, like, I just did this podcast. This is what we talked about. I shared this story. You can kind of just literally repurpose the interview into a live stream and then tell your audience, I'm going to post the interview when it goes live. So immediately after the recording, let that creative energy keep flowing, because who can relate to this? I know for me, when I'm posting to social media every single day, when I'm doing interviews every single week, the creative marketing energy flows. But when I stop doing it for a couple of weeks, even just a couple of weeks, let alone a couple of months or years, it's so much harder to keep doing it or to get back on that horse. It's sort of like working out. If you don't like, I'm pretty good about working out about 5 times a week, but if I go a week without it, I'm like, it is so hard to start working out again. It's the same thing with marketing, with content creation. So keep the energy flowing, leverage it, repurpose it. Don't let it stop just after the interview. And then, of course, when the interview goes live, you should be promoting it, posting about it. And we'll talk all today about how to take that interview recording and post it and repurpose it and leverage it. So be sure to be writing these tips down because they're simple, but they really, really work. Now, I am going to now talk a little bit about AI. I don't do a lot of trainings on AI because we're a very like human centric company. We don't use AI to pitch podcasts. We have all full-time local employees who are pitching the podcast hosts. So we don't do a lot of stuff on AI, but there are ways in which you can utilize some AI tools to help you repurpose the content that's created in a human to human conversation. So one of the tools that we use to repurpose our clients' podcast interviews at Interview Connections is a tool called Opus Pro. So Opus Pro, Opus Clip, OPUS.pro. And this is a great tool where you can paste in a link to an interview on YouTube or to a Zoom recording, and it will turn that interview into about 30 pieces of short form video content. And this is really excellent for Instagram, for TikTok, for YouTube Shorts, and even for Facebook and LinkedIn. Pretty much any social media or video platform really thrives on short clips because people have the attention span of a gnat these days. They don't like to watch anything for maybe more than 10 seconds. So when you have a very short clip with a great hook, that's going to get people seeing you all the time. So using a tool like Opus to take a longer form interview and turn it into short form clips can really feed your social media strategy so that you don't have to do podcast interviews and social media content and filming videos. You do a podcast interview and then you can turn that into every other form of content that your marketing plan calls for. You can also be posting these short form clips on YouTube as a short. I know a lot of people focus on like Instagram or LinkedIn, but YouTube Shorts is a great place to put them. Another way that you can repurpose your podcast interviews is by filming yourself actually doing the interview. So what that's going to look like is you're going to have sort of like here, I'll just grab it. It's on my desk here. So you'll just have this little tripod thing, it sits on your desk, and you can put your phone here. You can put it off to the side and then have your phone filming you from a different point of view than that of the Zoom call or Riverside or whatever is actually recording the interview. So it's more like an in-person video rather than just something that's like a kind of like a two-dimensional, video recorded on Zoom. So that's another way that you can repurpose your podcast appearances is because some of the highest performing, as a side note, some of the highest performing ads that we run on Facebook and Instagram are B-roll. It has music as a background and it just has me speaking into the camera and then some text overlay. And those also work really well for organic short form videos as well. So getting some B-roll of you speaking on a podcast interview is really good for content. And when you're on a podcast, your energy, you're in responding energy. So it's different than you just like doing a fake B-roll of like drinking coffee or something, which probably works as well too. But getting a video of you actually doing a podcast interview can be really great for your content. So Britt asks, is Opus Pro all AI? Yeah, it's AI. So once you put the interview into Opus and you click the button like get clips, usually takes about 13 minutes and AI clips it all up. And then you can go in as a human and like edit it and adjust the clips and add B-roll or, edit what the copy looks like and things like that. And that's something that we do for our clients. And just remember that your audience is made up of people who prefer to consume their content in all different ways. Some people prefer to read, some people prefer to watch a YouTube video. They need that visual and that audio content. And some people prefer to just listen to podcasts. And so it's funny because I was talking with somebody recently. This comes up every so often. Somebody's like drawn to being a podcast guest, but they're like, but I don't listen to podcasts. That's okay. Just because you don't prefer to listen to podcasts doesn't mean you don't have people in your audience who are listening to podcasts in order to find the information that they're looking for. So if you're only creating content in the form that you prefer to consume content in, you're missing out on other people who are ideal clients for you that are consuming content differently than you are. So by going on podcasts and repurposing the content into short video clips to capture the people that are looking for little snippets of information, you are going to capture more people. B-roll. So Janet asked what B-roll is. I don't know what it like stands for, but it's like B and then roll. And it basically is a video where you're watching someone do something, but there's no talking to the camera. I can pull up an example of B-roll on our Instagram just to show you what I mean. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, wait. No, I won't share my screen. I'm just going to send a link in the chat. Behind the scenes content, background stuff. Thank you, Claudette. So if you click that link in the chat to an Instagram, that's an example of B-roll. It's just a video of me and my daughter doing a ballroom dance class. And then I have some copy. You've thought about starting a podcast, but what feels more aligned is being a guest instead. We can book you on podcast, speaking to dream clients, book a free consult to learn how. So it's seemingly, sometimes it's video that doesn't always have to do. Sorry, we're getting off onto a tangent about just video ads and stuff like that, but that's B-roll. That's B-roll. So what my point is, if you get B-roll of you being on a podcast, that would be very engaging content for your social media. Oh, yay. Who else signed up with the ballroom dance video ad? I liked it because I've always called podcast interviews a dance. It is a dance between you and the host. And I've started taking ballroom dance lessons, and it is a dance between the leader and the follower. And I find it really interesting and fun. All right, awesome. Let's get back to it. Yeah, so your audience is made up of a lot of different people. Some prefer to read, some prefer to watch videos, some prefer to listen. So by taking your podcast interviews and turning them into other forms of content, you will capture more people. So how about those people who like to read? Well, when you're on podcasts, you're speaking your content out, but you can very easily use AI to transcribe your podcast interviews and have a lot of written content that you can use. Okay, perfect. Kat put in the chat a definition of B-roll. Thank you, Kat. So when you get your podcast interviews, number one, Opus will also transcribe the video clip. So you can take that transcription and turn that into, a post or an article or get some inspiration for like a written email. But you can also take all these podcast interviews, transcribe them all, and go crazy. Like you could take all of your interviews, transcribe them, and turn them into a book if you wanted to. That's actually how back in 2016. So I've been in business since 2013. I wrote this book, Interview Connections, in 2016, and I started writing it. But then I realized a lot of what I wanted to write about in this book, I had already done a podcast about it. And I was like, well, why am I writing this? I've already said all of this. And it was 2016. So we didn't have ChatGPT at that time. I hired a ghostwriter and I said, these are all the podcast episodes in which I talk about this and I talk about this. And then she listened and turned it into a book. But now, 2025, you could do the same thing. You could say, ChatGPT, this is the transcript of my interview, turn this into a book, have a human help you humanize it and everything. But honestly, it's limitless now. What we can do with our recorded audio content, with transcriptions, and with AI, we can really repurpose it and turn it into a ton of written posts, a ton of emails, text messages, books, articles. There's so much that you can do because your IP and your brilliance is in your mind. And when you speak it out, once it's out there, repurpose it, turn it into a lot of other forms of content. All right. Next, you can also, I mentioned this on session one, I believe, but you can create a Spotify playlist of all of your interviews to share with your audience. This is something that our client Mel McSherry does, our client Scarlett Stanhope does, our client Lauren Elise Rogers do this. They've all had a great return on their investment and their business has grown from being a guest on podcasts. And one thing that they do is that when interviews with them go live, they'll put them into this playlist. So that way, when they want to share their interviews with their audience, they're all in one place. So using a Spotify playlist is a great way to leverage your podcast appearances. So now I'm going to give you a couple of quick tips on how you can leverage podcast interviews in your sales process to close more sales. So when you have somebody who here does sales calls or discovery calls, consult calls, like before somebody signs up for your program or your service, they have a call with you, right? They reach out and they have a call with you. Okay. So having people come to that call prepared and warmed up is a really important part. If they're super, super cold, they don't know who you are, they don't see you as an authority, they're going to be less likely to buy. So leveraging your podcast appearances before that sales call is really going to increase your close rate. So you can be sending not only in your marketing email, sending out links to your interviews, texting them out to your list, you can also send them to your leads before the booked call. Hey, listen to this podcast before our call. It'll really give you some context. The sales calls I've had where people have listened to me on a podcast go so much better. They're so much warmer. They've already heard me talk about things that might normally come up as an objection with somebody who doesn't know me very well. But if they hear me talk on a podcast, they now come into that call seeing me as more of an authority. So you can leverage your podcast interviews with your list to get calls booked. We've also done that where we send podcast interviews to our list, they listen, and then they book the call. And you can also send the podcast interviews to people who have booked a call and ask them to listen before the conversation. You can even drive them to a specific timestamp in the interview. Maybe you talk about like one common question that you get all the time. Like one of our most common questions we get is like, what's the size of the audience and how do you select the shows? Like the show selection process comes up a lot. And so I talk about that a lot in my podcast appearances. And so if I know that's a common objection or question, I could say, definitely check out this interview. If you go to minute 12, that's going to answer one of our most commonly asked questions. So definitely leverage these interviews with your warm leads who are at the bottom of your funnel. And then put these podcast interviews onto a press page, onto a media page on your website, because podcast appearances aren't going to be, for a successful business, they're not the only way you're generating leads. You are probably getting leads by way of referral. You're getting leads who find you on LinkedIn or social media. You're getting leads who find you on Google. So it's not that this is going to be the only place that you get leads, but you can take these podcast interviews and then use them to optimize the results of every other type of marketing strategy you're using to get leads. So for example, you have people Googling you, whether it's somebody who was referred to you, Googles you first, or somebody who finds you through your Google ads, they Google you and they go to your website to kind of check you out before they reach out to book a call. If they see that you have a whole press page with links to interviews you've done, they can go listen to your podcast appearances before ever reaching out. And they, again, will come to that call so much warmer, and they will trust you a lot more because they're now seeing you as an authority and as somebody that all of these podcast hosts know, like, and trust. And I'll just give you an example in the chat. Christina L. Woods, who will be here tomorrow to share her success story. Her press page is great. She even has her podcast organized into the different categories of shows. So you can see the shows that she's on to speak to women in midlife and self-help shows and business shows. So that's just a good example of a press page. Now, if you implement all of these ideas and all of these different ways that you can repurpose your podcast interviews, I promise you will see significant growth in your business this year. It's the people that do the bare minimum where they get booked on a podcast and wait to see if people in that specific audience reach out and book a call and buy with them that think, well, this didn't work out too well. But our clients who go all in, who implement every single one of these tips, who are posting on social media before, during, and after the interview, they're transcribing them, they're uploading the clips, they're making the Spotify playlist, they are all the clients of ours who are seeing the best returns on their investment. And again, what I mentioned earlier in this call, rather than sitting here and saying, great, how do I get booked on podcasts? ask, who can book me? And the answer is we can, because that's exactly what we do. So inside of the Interview Connections membership, we have 3 different tiers where you can choose basically how fast, how much visibility are you looking to get. We have our silver membership for $1,000 a month. That's 1 booking a month. Our gold membership, which is $1,875 a month, and that is 3 bookings a month. And our platinum membership is 5 bookings a month, and that is $3,250. And every single member, regardless of what tier you choose, is going to get the following. We're going to professionally write and design your podcast one sheet in your media kit, which we talked about in session 2. You've got to have that to get booked on the best podcast. So we're going to do that for you in the first couple of weeks. We're going to repurpose all of the interviews that get published while you're a member of Interview Connections. So taking these interviews and turning them into those clips, we'll do it for you. You don't have to go get your own membership with Opus. We'll do that for you. You're also going to get monthly calls with your dedicated booking agent for coaching, strategy, and feedback. You'll get access to our school community with pre-recorded trainings and resources, and also monthly business mastermind calls with me and other Interview Connections members. So whether you want feedback on your sales process, your landing page copy, your messaging, there's a place to plug into and get feedback from other successful business owners who are working with us to get on podcasts. And then once per quarter, we bring together all Interview Connections members for a client-wide networking call so you can meet more entrepreneurs who are also investing in their visibility and their growth. So again, the investment starts at just $1,000 a month for our silver membership. Gold is $1,875 a month for 3 bookings a month, and platinum, 5 bookings a month, is $3,250 per month. So to apply for membership and work with us, go to interviewconnections.com/call. We'll review your information. If it looks like we can help you, we'll hop on a conversation and help get you started. This really is the perfect time to make an investment and to start working with us, because we can onboard you in this holiday season and really hit the ground running with getting you on podcasts in January, when hosts are going to come back from their holiday New Year's break and be ready to interview new guests for their podcast. And you want to be first in line to get on their show when they're booking new people. So don't procrastinate. Don't put this off to the new year. There's always a little bit of a ramp up with podcasts getting pre-recorded and then getting published after that. So the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to feel and see the impact on your business from podcast guesting. So to apply to work with us, go to interviewconnections.com/call. We'll review your information, hop on a call, and go over the next steps. We have one more session, which is tomorrow at noon Eastern Time, same Zoom link. And we have a few of our most successful clients who are going to share their success story and answer your questions. And then again, you'll have access to the replays until Friday, December 19th. So you have all of this week and all of next week. So thank you so much for being here live. I will talk to you soon, and we will see you tomorrow.